Or do you think that we actually have any girls who watch this stream? I can't imagine so, but it's possible. Anything's possible. Big Simba wants to come say hi. How are you guys doing today? Now, I know, some of you guys might be thinking to yourself, Papa Jack, you got here late, man. 15 minutes late. Now, if you were in the community, you already would have known that because I specifically told everyone in the Discord community. But for those of you who are thinking that I'm late and not sure why, I have good news for you. It comes in two forms. The first is we got a whiteboard ready for you. That's good news, isn't it? But the second, and the more exciting one, and the more prescient one for where we are right now is I had to brew a cup of coffee. Speaking of coffee, you know what my favorite thing in the world is? And if you would like to join me for my favorite thing in the world, in fact, if you would like to take this live stream to the highest of heights, in fact, the height of all of humanity, if you would like to reach for the culmination of all of civilization, the best part of waking up, then you should join me now for a Cheers with Chaps because we're getting started now. So go. Oh, it does taste better together, doesn't it? It always does. I have a theory for that. I think that the reason it tastes better whenever you drink it together is because you focus in for about 2 to 3 seconds. It's not very long, but that's all that it takes. For about 2 to 3 seconds, you really focus in on the taste of the beverage. And it makes it taste that much better. Because you're not just drinking it mindlessly, you're really, really savoring for just a moment that drink. And fuck, it's good, honestly. So, let's go ahead and jump into today's lesson. That light is like whitewashing me. It makes me look even bolder than I actually am. What happens if we turn it off? Whoa! Oh, okay, wait. We're experimenting because I've only just recently refound my webcam in the new home. So what if we turn that off but open the window? Okay, good. This Halloween stream. Oh, listen, Coot, are you gonna join us in Seoul for Halloween? I hope so because I already have my Halloween costume picked out. And Halloween is one of the 2 nights of the year that Lady North actually comes out with me. She comes out twice a year. She comes out for Halloween and she comes out for my birthday. And that's it. So good. I'm so glad. So we already have our couple's costume picked out. I'm really excited for that. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet because I'd like to keep it a bit of a surprise, but Seoul Halloween is in fact the greatest. But what I can tell you is that it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And it very much involves some animals. All right. I feel like I need to be a little bit quieter because now that the window is open, you guys can't see it, right? But I'm going to flip it around and show you. Now that the window is open, it leads straight out into the hallway. so my voice is just echoing and bouncing down the hallway now. It's on a Monday. No, nobody's going to fucking have a party on the Monday, right? It's on the Saturday. Yeah, definitely come for the weekend. Don't come for a Monday. So, speaking of exactly such mistakes, let me tell you today about 5 mistakes that smart guys make, because that's our topic today. And that is one of those mistakes where you're like, you get a little bit too literal about something. You're like, oh, but Halloween is on a Monday, so I'm going to be there for the Monday. Nobody's fucking partying on the Monday. They're all partying on the Saturday. But that's not one of my 5 points because remember, I said I'm late for a reason. Because I got whiteboarded up, bitches. So let's jump into this. So 5 mistakes the smart guys make all the time. Number 1, and this one is so common, it's so prevalent. It's professor mode. Whenever I see smart guys start talking with a girl, and to be fair, sometimes dumb guys do this shit too, but especially smart guys are really prone to this. They start going to professor mode and they start talking to a girl and they're like, oh, but do you know about this thing? But let me tell you about this thing. Let me show you this thing. Let me do this. I'm reversed again. Damn it to hell. Thank you, Coot, for letting me know. Okay, wait. I've fixed it midstream. How about them apples? Ha! Got you, kid. So, professor mode. And thank you for letting me know, truly. They go off on things to girls and they'll start just like yammering about stuff. And the worst part is that the girls aren't pretty much ever interested. And they start just launching into a lecture thinking that they should spend the next 30 to 40 minutes just explaining some concept that doesn't matter. And the reason they do it is, in their mind, they are demonstrating their value. I'm going to try to close the windows. Okay, good. With the window closed, the light has stayed roughly the same. So let's keep it that way. Now I can be a little bit louder. Good. Right. So they do it because they think that they're demonstrating value. They think that they're showing, oh, I'm so smart. I'm so knowledgeable about this topic, whatever. But actually what they're doing is they're just boring the shit out of a girl. Now, one of the things that a lot of guys will mistakenly go into professor mode about is they'll think, well, I should show passion. I want her to know that I'm passionate about stuff. And that's great. And you definitely should be passionate about things. But passion is like 30 seconds long in a conversation. That's about it. It's maximum a minute. But passion is not a 40-minute lecture. That is minutia. And you don't want to go into that realm. So, professor mode, avoid it. Let's go on to number 2. They think that all decisions are intellectual. Now, this is... I still don't know what the fuck is wrong with my camera. I don't know why it just like unfocuses and refocuses all the time. Maybe one day. You know what? Fuck it. This is a duct tape stream. This is what you get in the free version of the course. Okay, so smart guys tend to think that all decisions are intellectual. They think that reasons and rationale are the cause of decision making. And they're not. They're not. The fact is, they're not. One of the most important things to learn and to truly understand is that humans make their decisions. Fucking camera. Humans make their decisions and then they rationalize it after the fact. Most decisions are not intellectual. They're not even rational. Most decisions are purely emotional. It's just how you feel. That's it. And then you rationalize it after the fact. I mean, here's a great point right here, like literally in front of me. When a friend messaged me and said that they had found another dog in the same park where they had found Simba all those years ago, and they needed to know if I could take him in because he needed a home. I already made the decision. And then I rationalized it to myself and to Lady North because you have to explain it somehow. But it wasn't an intellectual decision. It wasn't one where I sat down and like did the math of like, okay, well, how much would it cost to take two dogs to the vet? How much will it cost on the initial vet visits? And how much will the extra food cost? And like, no, it wasn't that at all. It was an emotional decision. But then I rationalized it after for other people. What if a girl is interested in your research and happens in university, like explicitly asked? It does get me in mentor mode and not flirting mode. Okay, so here's what you should do in that situation. You give her a teaser. You give her a teaser and you say, now, for the rest, you're either going to have to pay me or kiss me. One or the other, right? You maybe not exactly that. I'm still a little bit drunk from last night, but you get my point of don't go full professor mode. You don't want to do that because professor mode is boring. Also, professor mode is very much in the friend zone. Don't go there ever. Don't go there ever. You might be able to demonstrate a little bit of your knowledge, demonstrate a little bit of your value in that regard. Great, but hold back. Hold back because the focus is not in teaching her about your research. The focus is in the two of you. Keep the focus on that and just give her a teaser of the other bits. Right. Decisions being intellectual. They're not. They're almost never intellectual. So that is a huge mistake that smart guys make. And they will, unfortunately for them, they will make this mistake whenever they're dealing with something like a date. When they're like, oh, would you like to go on a date with me? Would you like to go out for coffee? Could I take you out to dinner sometime? Something like that. In their mind, they think that it's an intellectual decision, and it's not. It's a purely emotional decision. This is one of the reasons that guys take things so personally. Whenever a girl rejects them or whenever a girl doesn't want to go out or she says no to your idea or to your suggestion or something, guys take it personally, but they really shouldn't. But they think that it's an intellectual decision, and it's not. It's an emotional decision. So she's making a decision based on her gut feeling, her gut instinct of, yeah, or nah, I don't know. I don't know about that. It's never an intellectual decision, and it's never a for sure. It's never there's no definite yes or no. I take that back because there are guys out there who are gonna take that kind of shit and be like, right, well, it's not a definite no, so we're just gonna keep on pushing. Like, fuck, man. All right. Here's an example of a definite no. So about 3 days ago, some dude found our Facebook group, and I have my WhatsApp connected to the Facebook group. So he decided to try to video call me at 3 a.m. to show me his dick because he thought I might be a girl. That's a definite no, bro. Right? First of all, don't do dumb shit like that. If you're listening to this stream, I'm assuming that you're more on the smart guy side of things and you would not do something like that. But also, there are definite no's. Just don't assume a no unless you're doing some dumb shit. Okay? All right. Next. Let's move on to number 3. The third mistake that smart guys make is over-explaining. Now, this is kind of tied in with professor mode, but this can be even worse than professor mode because one of the things that guys do is they will explain and rationalize all their decisions, everything that they do. It doesn't matter, right? But they'll go into detail about this. So you're sitting at a restaurant and you went to a Mexican restaurant. Great. After great deliberation and weighing the pros and cons, because every decision is intellectual. No, it's fucking not. But you went to a Mexican restaurant, and, well, if she says she's not interested, that's a definite no. Yes, true. Yes, correct. Anyway, I don't want to go back to it. So, you're sitting in a Mexican restaurant, and you decide to order enchiladas. One of the mistakes smart guys make is they will explain to the girl why enchiladas are in fact a better decision than tacos. And they will go through and thoroughly debunk all of the dirty rumors about enchiladas and absolutely tell you, and they will extol the virtues of the enchiladas. You're so fucking boring, man. Like, just because you can talk forever doesn't mean you should. I am probably more guilty of this than I would like to admit. But then again, I am running a stream where I literally talk to myself like a fucking lonely guy for 20 to 30 minutes every week. So it's kind of part of the gig. But whenever someone's there, don't over-explain things. Don't go into detail about your decisions. In fact, it's better if you don't explain them at all. Because explaining your decisions feels weak. It feels like you are trying to justify what you've decided to do. And you shouldn't. What the fuck is wrong with my camera? In all seriousness. It's like $150 fancy ass Microsoft camera, and it still just decides I'm falling out of focus every 30 to 45 seconds. Fine. Anyway, whenever you over explain stuff, you're basically justifying your decisions, and you shouldn't do that. You don't need to do that. And in fact, it seems weaker if you do. So, saying, hey, let's go to the Mexican restaurant. Great. Saying, hey, do you want to go have Mexican for dinner? Less good, but acceptable. Hey, what would you like for dinner? I was thinking either Thai or Mexican. What do you think? We're really losing the plot here. Now, actually, let me let you know. Tonight, I think that we should have Mexican food, and here's the reasons why. Here are 5 reasons. It's five mistakes smart guys make. 5 reasons that smart guys should go to Mexican for dinner. Fucking hell, man. Don't over-explain it. Unless you're doing it on a stream where you have to talk to yourself for 30 minutes, don't over-explain stuff. Dude, it just got really fucking meta there for a minute, didn't it? Well, let's move on to number 4 before I start having existential crisis or something. So number 4, your interests and hobbies. Interests and hobbies is there are certain interests and hobbies that you can like and you can talk about a lot. Those are interests and hobbies that everybody has. So, if your interests and hobbies are going out to bars, going out to restaurants, watching popular movies, listening to popular songs, things like that, you can kind of talk about them indiscriminately. But if your hobby is anything else, doesn't matter what, even if it's something that everybody likes, your hobby could be guitar. It doesn't matter. You have 30 seconds max. That's all you can talk about for your interests and hobbies. And you can use it as bait, right? You can use this. You can say, now, if you're interested in learning more about this, I have 5 guitars at home, 6 if you count the ukulele, and I would love to play you a song. Something like that, right? You can always leave it as bait, but do not go into depth about your hobby. Do not go into depth about your collections of this and that, whatever. Don't. Just don't. Just don't. It's not going to work out well for you. I have my happy little bear doll back here is actually a character reference to a video game that I very much enjoy. And a friend of mine enjoys that game too. And so he got me the doll from the game. And I have it up. I don't need to talk about it. It's part of my interest in hobbies, but there's no reason for me to explain it to you unless you already know what it is. And if you already know what it is, then I don't need to explain it. I don't need to tell you about my interests and hobbies in order for you to get along well with me. In fact, I don't. Most people that I know don't know what my hobbies are. They don't know what I do outside of, doing the stream. They assume that I play guitar. Maybe a few of them have seen a music video of mine, or two or three. And very, very, very few people have actually heard my album that I released about 10 years ago. You didn't know that, did you? You didn't know that I released an album. You probably didn't even know that I had a music video or two or three out. That's because I don't need to talk to you about it. We have enough in common. We have enough going on that I don't need to tell you about my interests and hobbies. In fact, it's better if I keep them for myself and let that be a pleasant surprise later on down the road. You should do the same thing. Keep your interests and hobbies to yourself, except for maybe a short blurb. If she asks you, what are your hobbies? And you say, I have none. That's a huge red flag. Don't do that shit. Yeah, Coot. But that was actually to exactly my point, which is you don't need to know it. Now, if I wanted to get all braggadocious, if I wanted to tell you guys about how fucking cool I am, I've released one solo album. I've released 3, maybe 4 albums total that I've been playing on, right? Like, I don't need to tell you about that part of my life because it's not prescient to this. Most girls don't even know it. Honestly, I don't even think that my wife knows how many albums I've released. She has no idea because it's not important, right? Like, don't say things that aren't to the point you're trying to make, right? And one of the mistakes that smart guys tend to make is that they will go a little bit further into detail. They'll talk about things that maybe don't matter to what they're trying to say, to the point that they're trying to make. And why, right? There's no point in going further into that stuff, especially your interests and hobbies. And here's the thing, is that my hobby is generally viewed as way cooler than most hobbies, right? Because if your hobby is like, oh yeah, I tend to play music, and I've recorded a few music videos, I put out a few albums, and like, wow, that's a pretty fucking cool hobby. And if your hobby is like, yeah, listen, I fucking love Seven of Nine. Let me tell you more about Deep Space Nine, because I know all the intricacies of the lore of the Star Trek universe. And here's the thing, is the Next Generation didn't even make sense because don't don't do that. Don't do that stuff. Don't go into detail about anything nerdy. And in fact, even things that aren't nerdy, just don't, right? Keep your focus on the girl, on your relationship with her, on what's happening between the two of you right now. Anything else is purely secondary. Anything else we can address tomorrow. We can go over this another time. Listen, I would love to show you my collection of One Piece figurines or whatever the fuck it is you're into. I'd love to show you, but first, we need another drink, don't we? Right? Bring the focus back on her all the time. Let's go on. Number 5, afraid of being wrong. This is the biggest one. And in fact, this one is the most prevalent and the biggest shoot yourself in the foot thing possible. Afraid of being wrong means indecision. I'm probably hitting home for some of you guys right now who are like, oh, fuck, yeah. Whenever you try to make a decision and you don't know what to do, whenever you turn into Chidi from The Good Place because it is the worst. It is, in fact, the worst, Coot. It is. But the good news is there is an easy fix to it. There's an easy fix. And I'm going to get there in just a second. But yeah, whenever you start turning into Chidi from The Good Place and you go into indecision mode because you are smart and you're used to being right. And the idea of being wrong about something fucking terrifies you. I get it. It sucks. But here's what you do. Here's how you fix it. Pick a method. And it doesn't even matter what method. Actually, have I ever told you guys about how I ended up in Korea? So back in 2009, I graduated from university. And you may or may not have heard, but there was a pretty big economic situation in 2008, 2009. Not a whole lot of jobs happening in 2009. Plus, it didn't help that I had a degree in music. So there's no jobs for that fucking thing anyway. Who the fuck let me do that? I don't know. Anyway, so I got offered a job to teach English in Korea. I got offered a job to teach English in Taiwan. I flipped a coin. It landed Korea. I moved here and never looked back. So yeah, cool. You guessed it exactly right. I flipped a coin. And I came here and I never looked back. That is the important bit. Is that sometimes whenever you're making a decision, it's not intellectual and it's not emotional. You just fucking pick one and you go with it. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. You're just picking a thing and then you go. And that's it. Because one of the most attractive qualities that a guy can have is decisiveness, assertiveness. And smart guys lack this. Like dumb guys have this easier because they don't question their decisions. They're not smart enough to question their decisions. And smart guys do. They wonder, like, well, wait, which is the best option here? Because they're afraid of being wrong, because they want to make sure that they make the right decision. And so they end up with paralysis by analysis. Extraordinarily unattractive quality to have in a guy. Instead, what you should do in situations where there is no obvious way to make an intelligent decision or make an educated guess or anything, right? If it's like, pick one, red or blue, pick one, left or right, pick a number out of 1,000. There's no way to make an educated guess. There's no way to make anything here. Just fucking pick one. And then, this is where it gets really fun. And then, tell everyone that you picked the right one and be really fucking confident in it, even if you're not. Have you ever read The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost? I'm assuming that if you went to middle school in an English-speaking country, you probably were forced to read The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost, right? And now, a lot of people think that the poem is about somebody who's who's saying like, oh well, I took the harder way, I took the different way, and so that made all the difference. It's not. It's not. Actually, the last stanza of the poem, he's literally saying, no, I'm sitting here in a bar and I'm explaining to other people that the decision I made completely arbitrarily was the right decision because of all these reasons that I'm justifying. Remember, decisions are not intellectual, they're emotional, and we justify them after the fact. That's what this guy is doing, and that's what you should do too. Learn from that, do that thing, make a completely irrational emotional decision, and then be like, and that has made all the difference because I took the road less traveled. And that, my friends, is why I'm here today. Right? Like, you just make up some stupid shit. Be very, very overconfident in the decisions that you know there's no reason to be confident about. Why? Why do that? Well, I'm talking to somebody I'm talking to you. And if you've made it this far into this video, I'm assuming that you have made some of these mistakes. I'm assuming that some of this stuff is hitting home for you. Some of it's ringing true. You probably are not used to making a decision and then declaring it to be the unambiguously correct decision no matter what happens. Because you're smart enough to know that you never say never, that you never say always, that you never say definitely the best. You never speak in absolutes, right? Because only a Sith deals in absolutes. So whenever you do make decisions that you've actually thought through and that actually matter to you, you always kind of hedge your bets a little bit and you say, well, this is what I think is the best option, but I could be wrong, but there are some benefits to the other side, but, and so what you need to do is, on situations like this, that there's nothing but just make a choice. That's it. You need to use those as your moment to fucking shine and to really demonstrate your assertiveness, because you aren't demonstrating it in other parts of your life. Now, I could tell you that you need to change those habits, that you need to change those things about how you act. That's very difficult. That requires years of concerted effort and work. But this is an easy hack. You can look assertive as fuck and really decisive and really confident whenever you pick things that don't matter with just like the confidence of Conan the Barbarian. Easy hack. Really helps to up your assertiveness, your dominance, and your decisiveness, while still allowing you to, in other aspects of your life, be a little bit more of a bitch. Let's not lie. But I don't mean that in a bad way, because I have the same issues. So that is, a good plan now is better than a perfect plan 10 minutes later. That's absolutely true. And you should never let... There was a phrase about this that I learned. Never let... Fuck. Basically, yes. Just do something, and it doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be right all the time. In fact, nobody expects you to be right all the time. Now, to this last point, let me tell you guys something that I've learned over the years. And this is a really important thing. You're afraid of being wrong. Most people will remember the times that you were right and not the times that you were wrong. I mean, think about how many like fucking never let great get in the way of good. Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Coot. You fucking read my mind. Jesus Christ. I don't know. Some fucking Quebecois voodoo bullshit or something. I don't know. But people will not remember the things you got wrong. They'll always remember the things that you got right, because we already have a confirmation bias about people who we know, people who we like. We want them to be right. And so we tend to remember the things that they said that were right, and we forget the things they said that were wrong. So if in 2012, if I had told you, by the way, just so everybody knows, Donald Trump is going to be the next president, everyone would have thought I was crazy, and they would have just forgotten that thing entirely. And here's the thing, is that they wouldn't have ever thought about that again if he didn't become the president, right? They would have just been like, nothing. But if it was right, then they would all be like, oh, fuck, he predicted this 4 years earlier, right? So making decisions, making claims, making whatever the hell else, like when you have no evidence whatsoever, you can do it. You can do it, and no one's going to remember the shit you got wrong. They're only going to remember the things that you got right. So don't be afraid of being wrong. In fact, don't be afraid of being spectacularly wrong. Now, I told you guys maybe a month or two ago about how to really improve your life by learning to love embarrassment, by leaning into that stuff. This also plays into it, because you're not embarrassed if embarrassment isn't a thing that you feel anymore. And you get to be fucking Nostradamus if all you do is just say things and then people remember the things that you said that were right. Nobody remembers the ones you got wrong. Never be afraid of being wrong. That's the basic point here. But huge mistake smart guys make. Now, with all that said, I've been rambling for quite a while. There's a reason for that. The reason I've been rambling so long is because I was hoping, waiting, and wishing deep within my soul that Paul and Julius were going to get here. But it seems like, well, I know that for sure. Last night I was out drinking with Paul, so I know why he's not here. He just didn't make it. It's okay. It's all right. Not everybody can handle a night out with Jack with the kind of aplomb that you need to be able to get up and do a stream the next day. Paul has failed. That's okay. No idea what Julius is up to, but let's bring the kid in. So, the kid, welcome to the party. How are you doing, buddy?
Hello. I'm doing good.
Good. Let me turn you up a bit so I can hear you better, because I'm an old man and my hearers are not working well. Say something.
Hello.
All right, beautiful. Love it. The kid, did you enjoy that stream? I'm not going to lie, I kind of targeted some of that stuff at you.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. It was interesting.
You're a smart guy who tends to get in his own head, and I wanted to give you some ideas about some potential things that you could work on there.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely had some interesting flashbacks.
Good. I'm gonna pour myself a fresh cup of coffee real quick, and then we're gonna jump right into the questions. Okay?
Okay.
Bento. What are you doing, buddy? All right. So, what do you have for me today, the kid?
So, let's start with the kind of hobby side of things because I did find it was interesting how you're like, unless it's a generally popular hobby that is very common amongst most people, um, don't like go in depth unless it's like they have it or they're very much like, ooh, tell me more, tell me more, tell me
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah.
So then it's like, okay, but what if you kind of end up in that position where you don't really have any hobbies in common?
then don't talk about the hobbies, right? Like, I I have zero hobbies in common with my wife. It really isn't that important. You just don't talk about that. You talk about what's right in front of you, and what's right in front of you is the girl, is the relationship, uh, is the food, is the drink, is the dog, is what literally whatever is right in front of you. You talk about that thing because you guaranteed have that in common because you can both see it. So if you don't have hobbies in common, it's fine. It doesn't matter. And if you do, great. But even then, it's still not as good as the thing that's right in front of you. Uh, most of the time. Now, it's great for about a 3 to 5 minute discussion if you guys have something in common. So if you're both really into classical music, all right, I'm picking something that I know well so that I can give an example. If you're both really into classical music, then you can talk about that for about 3 to 5 minutes and then jump back to what's happening now. Because otherwise, you risk going into professor mode. And you might even risk her going into professor mode, which is also just as deadly to the conversation because it takes the focus away from here, now, me, you, let's do this, right? And so you don't want that. If you guys started talking about how, like, well, yeah, sure, everybody loves Bach because, like, well, maybe we don't love Bach, but we respect Bach. But let me tell you something about Robert Schumann. And then she's like, no, Robert Schumann was just a piece of shit compared to Clara Schumann. Like, oh, Clara, okay, good. Like, you get into that conversation and you both might enjoy it. This is the trap, is that you both might enjoy the conversation. But then at the end of it, you'll walk away with zero attraction built. None. Because that is an intellectual conversation. It's not an attractive conversation. She is not fucking leaving snail trails on the bar stool because of the Brahms' Fourth Symphony. I would leave snail trails on the bar stool for that stuff, but she's not. So even with hobbies that you have in common, 3 to 5 minutes, max it out, and then get back to focusing in on the here, now, right in front of us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think
Good.
that it makes sense probably too because I'm pretty sure it has something to do probably like you're activating the wrong hemisphere of the brain during that conversation.
Yeah. Smart guy shit right there. Good. Yes. Explain it. Explain it away. Yeah. Activating the wrong hemisphere of the brain. Sure. And fact is, doesn't work. Don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably contradictory to point out the in-depth discussion details about it.
Not all decisions are intellectual. Not all points are intellectual. Sometimes, even if something seems like it should work, seems like it should be right, but it objectively doesn't, you don't need to explain it. Just don't do the thing that doesn't work, right? And so, yeah, talking about hobbies doesn't work. Don't do it. Bring it up. It's fine. 3 to 5 minutes, beautiful. And then if you can, to the music thing, like I've used that as bait so many times, being like, well, if you're really nice, I might play a special concert for you back at home. And now I've already gone past the sale of she's in my home to, like, do you see what I mean? You can use that. Or you can say, well, I really don't like to show people my music video while I'm out with them because then it takes the attention away from me for like 3 minutes, and I'm too much of an attention whore for that. So, tell you what, go ahead and put your number into my phone right now, and I'll message it to you tomorrow morning. Oh, okay, right. Like, use those things as bait you can. If you have something that you can then show them, that's beautiful. There are ways to use that without having to go deep into the hobby itself, if that makes sense. And that can be the same for maybe for Coot, where he's like, well, I don't really like to talk about, how many books I've published, but like, I'll tell you what, if tonight goes well, I'll show you my bibliography back when we get back to my place, right? Except my bibliography. That's not the right word for this. But I'm obviously not the smart guy, at least not anymore. I gave up being the smart guy a decade ago. It didn't fucking work for me. And so I gave it up in favor of being a dumb musician, and that's a character that I literally lean into now. So even whenever I have smart thoughts and I have insights, I keep them to myself most of the time because that's not the character that I play. It's intentional. That's fucking weird to realize, isn't it? That everybody is playing a character that they have chosen. Now, you might not know that you have chosen your character, but you have. You're playing a character, and you have chosen your character. You, the kid, have chosen a character. You, Coot, have chosen a character. And you, whoever else is watching right now, you have chosen who you want to be, and you've chosen a character that you are playing, that you are actually acting out as you go. Nobody is 100% genuine. It doesn't exist because we don't know who we are in a 100% genuine kind of manner. So you're playing a character, and it's always a choice. It's always a choice. And if you haven't made a conscious choice, then you're just letting whatever happens happen. But everybody's made a choice. We're all playing a character. Even if you don't think you are, you are. Sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, the kid.
Okay.
What do we have
All
next,
good.
buddy?
So, I think an interesting thing would go down. I had another question, but if we can go down the string of hobbies a little bit deeper here, right? Because
Sure.
you said don't need to really go into them too much, right? You don't need any in common. They're not really a necessity, like maybe some people try to portray as, oh, you need hobbies in common, blah 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 blah. But
Yeah.
you did say you do leverage some of the musician side of things as bait at times, right? You said could try to be like, well, I have 20 books published, etc. I want to go read my library, something like that.
Yeah.
So you did identify there's the common hobbies, right? There's the hobbies no one cares about, right? What are the certain hobbies you'll have that you don't need to go in depth, like you said, that professor mode into, but what are worth bringing up maybe in a bait situation or just kind of displaying your character or archetype?
Any hobby is worth bringing up if, and this is important, if you can be passionate about it and finish in under 30 seconds. Any hobby. And here's the thing is that even the I don't know, least attractive, the nerdiest hobbies, right? Like if you okay, here's an example of this is a true story. And I'm gonna do this in under 30 seconds. I'm gonna tell you about a hobby that I had and about an experience that I had in under 30 seconds. And it's going to be passionate and it's going to be interesting and it's going to be super fucking nerdy. So, back when I was in college, one of the things that I did to make money on the side is I was totally addicted to World of Warcraft. Loved playing it, played it all day, all night. So what I would do is I would build small little computers that could just barely run the game. I would set a bot up on them to level up characters, and then I would put the shitty computer up on eBay for about 50% more than I had paid to build it. And I would sell the World of Warcraft accounts. I ended up making about $5,000 a month in profit on that because of my weird World of Warcraft addiction. There you go. That's a 30-second insight into a couple of hobbies that I have. One, build computers. Two, World of Warcraft. Okay, great. Also, it was a little bit interesting. Kind of brought you in, let you see a little window into my life, let you see some things that I've done, and it had a fun little payoff at the end where it was like, wait a minute, you made how much just fucking flipping cheap-ass parts in World of Warcraft accounts? Well, yeah, back in 2006, you could do some weird shit like that. eBay was still pretty new. All right, now we have not just a window into my life and into my hobbies, but now we have some different topics that you can, from that, you can draw conversation bits out from there, right? And you can go in probably 7 or 8 different directions just from that little 30-second snippet. You don't have to have exactly that thing. You don't have to have exactly that, but the concept remains the same, which is any hobby is perfectly fine to talk about if you can do it in a fun and interesting way and 30 seconds or less. Give me a snippet, right? Tell me why you love. Why is it that you believe that in 30 seconds or less that Captain Kirk is the real captain and William Shatner was a fucking poser or whatever, right? In 30 seconds or less, if that's your hobby, whatever it is. Hell, I mean, I don't know if I talk about this on the stream, but like I mix my own vape flavors, right? And if I'm going to talk about that, then I'll keep it to 30 seconds or less, right? I'll be like, oh yeah, I make my own stuff. Call it Jack Juice. Hi, I'm Jack. You get it? Yeah, right? We got chocolate Rice Krispies in here now. 30 seconds or less. It's a hobby. It's kind of a weird hobby too, right? Like, that's not normal. That's not what regular people do. They don't fucking have 300 flavorings for their nicotine addiction. That's weird. But you do it in 30 seconds or less, and it doesn't seem weird. It seems like, oh, no. It's just a hobby I have. It's a thing I do. Oh, okay, cool. You don't seem weird to have a hobby, no matter how nerdy, no matter how strange it is, if you can keep the conversation to 30 seconds or less, because then it seems restrained. It seems like, it's just a hobby. It's just for fun. It's not a thing that overtakes your life. This is one of the reasons that guys have problems whenever they talk about their interests and hobbies, is because they let it take over their life and they let it dominate the conversation when it shouldn't. In fact, it should just be a blip in the conversation. That's all. As long as you can keep your hobby discussion under 30 seconds, regardless of what it is, it's fine. If she shares the hobby, great. Now, you have 3 to 5 minutes to talk about it, and then it's over. Then back to focusing here. Oh, Simba, give me the hiccups. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Very interesting.
No, I actually don't know. I never remember what about me I've told you before. Did you know that thing about me building computers and selling World of Warcraft accounts?
No, I did not know that part.
there you go, right? All right, let's go on. What's next, the kid?
All right, so obviously now we know kind of like the idea of like explaining hobbies, not going to professor mode, and we're like, okay, cool, let's not do that. But what if you notice they're starting to go into that mode. How do you bring them out of that?
Bring the focus back to something that is directly in front of you. So in my mind, that means like, man, I fucking love all this talk. Listen, I am super into hearing about the history of Barbie dolls. Okay, this is great. I love it. But also, we're out of drinks. So here's what I'm thinking. I propose we move over to the next bar and let's have a nice fancy cosmopolitan there in celebration of your Barbie. Lean into it a little bit. Allow them, if they're that excited, they're that interested in something, don't poo poo it, right? Because the same as like if you were really interested in something, you don't want someone to be like, well, that's fucking dumb. So don't poo poo it. Lean into it a little bit. Don't be patronizing, but also bring the focus to let's do this thing, or right, love that. Also, we're about to get hit by a car. Let's maybe get out of the middle of the street. Uh, Whatever it is that is in front of you at the time, bring the focus back. Basically, bring them out of the clouds. Right? They get their head in the clouds. It's okay. Everybody does it. We all have that issue sometimes. Bring their head out of the clouds. Bring them back to where we are right now, what we're focusing on right now. You know what? I would love to listen to you talk about why Waluigi is the sexiest of all of the Mario characters, but I have to walk my dogs, otherwise they're going to piss inside the apartment. So you like dogs, right? Come on, let's go back over here. We're gonna go meet my dogs. We're gonna take them out for a little bit. Good? Yeah, awesome. Let's go. Just bring their head out of the clouds. Focus in on something right here, right now that they can also latch on to. Because people who tend to lose their focus and get attached to something else and go into professor mode, they need something to latch on to. Otherwise, they get bored quickly and easily. So give them something, and it could be about the dogs. It could be focus in on the dogs. It could be focusing in on. I want you to. I want you to choose the perfect drink for our first drink at the second bar, right? And like you can give them a task, give them something to do that works well. Anything to get them focused in on the moment, because if you leave them up there in the clouds, you've lost them. Does that answer your question, or do you?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Give them an anchor back to reality.
Yeah, give them an anchor that they can hold on to, and make sure that anchor is you centric.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. Okay, I think the last question I have is, and you've kind of talked about it a lot, right? Where it's been like, talking about like what not to talk about, what to talk about, hobbies, and keep it focused on. Don't very briefly discuss the hobbies, and then keep conversation about very in the moment things, what's going on around you, what you're eating, etc., stuff like that. Now, when it comes to kind of life events, stories, school, that kind of stuff, just in general, like life stuff, how do you play that into there? Like, where does that fit in? How much focus should be given to those things? I know this is breaking down like a very natural process of conversation, but it's like, how does that fit into those two categories of hobbies, very limited discussion, and in the moment things should the focus be on?
Two things. One, I'm going to pre-apologize to you, but two, uh, I heard you talking there and talking about things that are in the moment, and I feel like the way you were talking about it made me feel like you had kind of, in my mind, I witnessed a vision of you and a girl sitting at a dinner table eating pasta, and she was talking about her hobbies or something, and you were like, yeah, but how about this spaghetti? Am I right? And like, I don't want that, right? So I would like to preemptively intervene and be like, no, yes, focus in on the here and now, but only if it's better than what else is happening. Because if you're trying to trade in her talking about her hobbies or her going into professor mode to talk about the spaghetti, that's not going to work out, right? So like these are not hard and fast rules. None of this is hard and fast. It's all just about here are things to be aware of so that you don't fuck this up in that situation. Uh, but if there's nothing else to talk about, let her run, right? Now, back to point one, which is I'm pre-apologizing because I got so distracted in that vision of you fucking up a date that I literally did not hear the question you asked me. So that was my pre-apology. Now, one more time, please.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you clarified that bit. But so when it comes to kind of the different things to talk about, right? There is the idea of you've touched on hobbies, you've touched about the in the moment things, right? And obviously use some common sense and don't just follow your rule blindly. But there's also the elements of, elements about you, stories, what you've done, etc. Right? That isn't necessarily hobbies. It's just part of your story, their story. How does that fit in? Because you're not necessarily a professor mode. It's not necessarily a technical thing, but it's also like you.
Um, bring up your stories when it matters. I realize that's fucking terrible advice because a lot of guys are like, but I don't know when it matters, right? Like, okay, all right. Never try to one up someone. Never one up someone. That is just it's just bad etiquette no matter what. Doesn't matter. Guy, girl, date, not a date, doesn't matter. Just don't try to one up people. Now, if they're talking about something and you have had a similar experience, but very importantly, you're not one upping them, at least that's not the intent, right? That's not the thing you're doing, right? It's never like oh, you had a cookie once? Wow, I had a cookie too, but it was like so much bigger than yours. Right? Don't fucking do that shit. But if you can share something similar, a similar experience that is relevant to the conversation, then yes, absolutely bring it in, right? Oh, you're from California. Cool. What part? Oh, you're from the Bay Area. I mean, I'm not really familiar with it, but I visited my cousin out there in Cupertino back in 2007, and we drove around the whole area around like San Jose, and we went over to the Stanford campus, and it was a really nice area. I quite like it out there. I have to admit the trolley cars were not as impressive as they'd been made out to be. That's an example of sharing an experience that is honest, it's genuine, it's part of a conversation, and it doesn't feel like showing off. It feels pertinent to, oh, you're from this area. I have visited this area. Oh, you have traveled to this place. I too have traveled to this place. Oh, you have gotten drunk and pissed yourself on a bus. Wow. Well, I haven't done that yet, but I'm sure it's somewhere in my future. So tell me how you got out of that situation because I may need this knowledge in the future. Right? Like, you don't, it needs to be, I know that this is shitty advice because it's so subjective language, but try to understand what I mean whenever I say that it needs to be as fluid and as human as possible. It needs to be about the connection. I'm curious about you, so I'm going to share some things about me that seem relevant to you that might help you to share more things with me so that we can build this connection. It's not at all that mathematical or that formulaic, but that is the goal. The goal is to build the human connection to to be relatable. Yeah, Coot. To be relatable. Yeah. Um, and even if it's not directly relatable, it needs to have some anchor wherein they can understand what's going on, right? I mean, like the thing about the hobbies earlier, right? With the music, there's a reason I don't tell people that stuff because it's unrelatable, right? Like if I tell them, I'm like, yeah, I've released 4 albums and and 3 music videos, and so far, out of those 4 albums and 3 music videos, I have made a grand total of $0 in profit. It's fucking what you right? That's all over the place, right? It's like, wait, you release albums, you release music videos. Hold on, why didn't it make any money? What the fuck is going on here, right? Where's the anchor? Where's the anchor for someone else to be able to jump into this without just having to interview me, right? Where's the anchor that lets this conversation keep going and being a two-way conversation? It's not there. So I don't talk about it, right? Uh, Everything needs to have an anchor. It needs to be relatable to the other person. And if they're talking about something that doesn't have an anchor, try to insert one, right? So this goes to your question you asked earlier about like if they go into professor mode, what do? Insert an anchor. Insert something where and you can even be very direct about it, right? Be like, "Hey, I love where you're going with this, but I'm having a hard time relating to it. Can you help explain it in a way that somebody who fucking majored in music and is an idiot could understand?" Right? Like you can get a little bit meta with it and get there are so many ways to go about this, but getting an anchor, getting something relatable, getting a way that you two can communicate no matter the situation, and helping to focus in more on this bit, right? Because we don't need to focus on the fucking spaghetti. If she's going off on the history of Barbie dolls, that's fine. Ask her for an anchor. Not in those words, because that doesn't mean anything to her, but be like, hey, give me an ELI 5, right? Like explain like I'm 5. Give me a version of this that I can understand without needing to know these things that I clearly do not know. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. That's fine. And you can admit to that. And as long as you're getting the anchor and bringing the focus back in on this bit, everything else will go a lot smoother that way. I have gone off on such a tangent. I literally do not remember the question for a second time, but I hope I've answered it.
You answered it.
Okay. Now we did have a question in the Discord that I promised I would get to in today's Q&A.
Do you want me to read it?
Please.
Okay, let me pull it up. So hi Jack. And then this is from one of the users. The most impressive stories from you, friends, clients, and what lessons and tips can we learn from it? Thanks in advance.
Most impressive stories from clients are actually probably in Paul's interview. And so if you watch Paul's interview, he does a much better job of explaining the crazy shit that he got into as a result of my coaching. The other side of things is two of my clients now have gotten married to the girls that they've met under my tutelage. That's pretty fucking impressive. I'm proud of that one. My own personal stories, I cannot name names for obvious reasons, or at least they're about to become obvious. I cannot name names, but I hooked up with Korea's only astronaut. I hooked up with a K-pop star. I've hooked up with a couple of different models. I once banged two different sisters in the same night. But here's the thing: is that like those things are like on paper impressive. If that makes any sense, like obviously you'd never write any of these things down on paper, but they're like resume impressive. But none of that means that it was actually good, right? Like you can hook up with a model and have terrible sex, and you can get a fantastic blowjob from a 4 in a dive bar, right? Like, which is better? Better for what? Better for you or better for bragging to your friends, right? Like, there's a reason I don't usually talk about these things, and it's because I don't give a shit about the bragging to your friends bit. Just, are you enjoying what you're doing? Yeah. Okay, great. It's all that matters. And as far as impressive things go, I don't. Simba, please stop. I don't know this. Simba, come here. Come here. Come here, Simba. Come here. Come here. Hey, come here. Jump up. All right. I don't know. Oh, sorry, buddy. I don't know that there's anything more impressive than actually just being happy, enjoying your life, and loving yourself for who you are. Because in this year, in 2022, the number of people who I see who are trying to find happiness, trying to seek it out as if it's a thing that we can buy or we can earn if only I'm dedicated enough to finding the happiness, to meeting the right girls, to uh, making this much money, to doing this or whatever. It doesn't exist, man. Not in that way. Not in that way. Happiness is not a thing that you can find, that you can buy, that you can earn. I mean, they say money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure does buy a jet ski. Okay, okay. Yeah. Uh, let's redefine then. Not happiness, contentedness. Like actually being happy and satisfied. Enjoying the thing that you do in life, even if it's uh, again smart guy shit. By the way, smart guys, here's another piece of advice: Don't talk about shit. Don't make references that people aren't going to understand. With that said, I'm about to do that. Even if it's a fucking Sisyphean task and you're just pushing the boulder up every single day, finding some joy, finding some meaning in that thing and being actually content is, to me, far more impressive than the number of girls you banged, than than how famous they were, than how hot they were, than any of this stuff. It doesn't matter. It feels like it does, but when you actually start doing it, it doesn't matter at all. Uh, the the first time that you hit one of your goals, whatever it is, and you realize, wait a minute, literally nothing has changed. It's just a fucking Tuesday, isn't it? Oh no. If you've been living for your goals, this is why, total aside, maybe we'll cover this next week, that systems are better than goals. But this is one of the reasons that systems are better than goals, because goals have no meaning whatsoever. Your goal could be financial, right? Like make $1 million. Okay, you made $1 million, and then what? Well, it's still just fucking Tuesday. Do you enjoy your job, the thing that you did to make the $1 million? Are you having fun doing it? If so, great. Then, right, keep going, because it doesn't matter. Your goal could be to bang 100 girls. When Stallion, who you guys, well, depending on how much attention you've paid to the community, you guys may or may not know Stallion. But when Stallion hit 100 girls, here's a true story. I bought him an ice cream cake and I brought it out to his date with his 101st girl. we had little candles on it for 100, and she was so confused. She was like, "What are we celebrating? 100 of what?" And I was like, "Oh, it's our 100-day friendship anniversary." And she's like, "Oh, that's really sweet. Wow, you bought him a cake for that. That's so nice." Right? Like, but the point is that, like, even though we had a bit of a celebration, we had a good time doing it, it didn't fucking matter, right? Because he's already out on a date with 101. So 100 wasn't like the cutoff that made a difference. It was just a fucking Tuesday, right? So if you're enjoying what you're doing, then keep doing it, and then the other stuff doesn't matter. And if you're not, then why are you doing it in the first place? Don't do it to reach some goal, to reach some milestone. Don't do it to impress other people. Don't do it to show off to your friends. Like, that's like saying, who has the biggest dick in the locker room? Well, that's pretty fucking gay, isn't it? You want a bigger dick to impress other dudes? Wait, what? Right, like, you need to think about what it is you're trying to accomplish by these goals, by your, are you doing a thing to show off, or are you doing a thing because you just enjoy doing it? If you guys, so the guy who asked this in Discord, I've given you some basic overview of, like, here are my, like, on paper, these are some fancy things that I've done. All right, neat. Now, if you want to hear funny stories, you want to hear my funniest experiences, they're not going to be those. You want to hear my best experiences, you want to hear about the best dick sucking I ever got, that's a lot more interesting to me, at least. Not in those stories, though. It's not there, right? Because those are the on paper, like, oh, what have you done? Hey, here's my resume, right? But that's not interesting to me, because it's not personal, it's not meaningful, it's not deep, it's not anything. It's just I stuck my willy in a couple of pretty girls. All right, cool, nice, well done. Sorry, I really fucking went on a little bit of a tirade there, but I don't know. I think we're moving towards the Jack is getting too old for this kind of young man's game shit. We're moving that direction quickly. In any case, do you have anything else for me, the kid?
No, that's it for today.
Excellent. We have. So I hope that this has made up for me being 15 minutes late because we've gone 20 minutes over the hour. And you've gotten a lot more personal stuff out of me today than I normally ever give. So for those of you who have stuck around this long, well, I hit the like button on YouTube, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. It feeds the algorithm. Maybe some more people will see this stuff if you do it. But regardless of any of that, I do appreciate you hanging out with me. Everybody who's watching and the kid, thank you for being here. Much love, my man. And I'll catch you guys next time. So, Papa Jack out.